Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be finding our inner weird and be inspired by the artwork of Sarah Trumpp. I think she goes by Trumpp on Instagram and on YouTube, so please go and check her out because she's got amazing artwork. So this is based on a piece from Lifebook Summit 2019, so those people who have been on that course will probably have seen this, and this is my sort of interpretation of it. But I just loved it as I came across it. It was something that really appealed to me, and I think it was the message in itself about sort of celebrating your inner weird, because I always think I'm weird, and I just really enjoyed doing this. So I'm using colours that I don't usually use. I never usually use greens very often, so I broke out my greens, mixed them all up on the page. One of my favourite techniques to do is work wet on wet like I'm doing now, to mix colours, not clean my brush, just sort of mix them all up. I find that you get really lovely blends of colours. It's not thought out, and if I tried to replicate it using proper brush strokes, I couldn't. So I find it's a really great way to get something interesting in the background and some texture in the background without having to do very much. So I'm just going in and drying that off, making sure it's all nice and dry. The paints I'm using are I think it's lime, olive and evergreen from Dina Wakley, and that's a phthalo green, I think, from Amsterdam Paints, that I sort of put on at the end just to get a little bit more darkness on the page. So I think one of the things that I really loved about the inspiration from Sarah was it was just really simple shapes. Everything was exaggerated, nothing was too thought out, and everything was easy to sketch out. You didn't have to worry about having perfect facial features. They were supposed to look odd and crooked, and as you can see, it's basic ovals. There wasn't anything difficult to sketch out. So once I'd sketched it out, I used a Stabilo All pencil to sketch it out. I do a lot of my sketching in that because if I really don't like where the line is, I can use a wet wipe to remove it, especially over the top of acrylic paint. If I've heat set it beforehand, it's not going to stain anything. I find working with pencils, I tend to press too hard onto the page, so I tend to end up with indents, which really annoys me when I'm sort of trying to get rid of those painted features. I'm working in my large Dina Wakley journal, which I don't break out very often because it barely fits on my desk, but I just wanted something bigger to do this shape in, just to have a lot of fun with it. So I've actually ended up using a little playing card as my palette because I couldn't get my paint onto the glass board like I usually do, and have it all in the one place at one time. I'm just going in and using sort of the monochromatic colours, so the greens and a bit of it's actually a green tinted neutral, it's called aloe, to sort of mix my colours. And you saw me put down a little bit of red first, just to sort of add some shading to the face. Now I'm painting over it, which seems a bit odd, but it's a good way to sort of put some shading in, and you can see it still peeping through, but it just gives you a little bit of darkness to work with. Like I did before, I'm blending the colours as I go. I'm not washing out my brush between. I'm sort of adding it on. If I need a bit darker, I'll add more paint in. If I need a bit whiter, I put some more of the sort of greeny tone colour in. So it's very, well, I suppose it is intuitive in the fact that you're just sort of playing around. The great thing about this is because it doesn't need to look realistic, you can. You know, we don't have green faces usually, and you could do this in any monochromatic colour and come up with something really interesting. So I would encourage, if you haven't sort of played around with using your brush to sort of blend and work with at once without cleaning it in between, to have a go at it. It is a really freeing technique, and you do get some really interesting colour variations that you couldn't really get if you didn't do that. So now I'm going in with a little bit of Payne's Grey to put some shadowing on. You can see I'm watering down my paint as I go. So on the left hand side I want it quite a light shadow, and just have it a bit darker on the right hand side. And I'm just going in and sort of playing around and seeing what I come up with. I know that I'm going to put some colour pencil over the top. So these are just base coats basically, just to give me something to play along with and to sort of see where the darker light areas are going in. So the good thing about using the acrylic paints too is, you saw on the side of the nose there, if it's too dark I can get a little bit of water and water it down and blend it out a little bit more until I'm happy. And that's all this is just playing around until I'm happy. I actually did this page quite late at night. I tend to do most of my paintings late at night because I have to wait till my children go to sleep. But I find it really relaxing just to sort of break out the paints, have something on the iPad in the background, just playing mindless nonsense, and just create. And with this one in particular, because it didn't need to be perfect, I was feeling really, really relaxed about it, I think, and it certainly added to the joy of creating it. Even though it looks really, really odd and strange, it just made me happy when I was doing it. So I'm just going in and making sure that everything is dry. I decided I want to put in the whites of the eyes now. So this is the Paper Artsy chalk paint. It's actually a really, really opaque white, which I'm quite surprised about because it's quite fluid. But when you put it on, it is quite opaque. So you can sort of put it on and scrub it out. It's great for highlights, which I found. And for most people who follow this channel know I tend to use my Posca paint pens, but I think I might actually, for larger images like this anyway, be tempted to go for my white pencils. So now I'm going in and using my colour pencils to put in the eyes and to do some detail work. So I'm starting off with a darker colour over the lid of the eye and into the iris, then into a slightly lighter colour, and I'm using the greens to pick up the greens in the background so you can sort of see those colours coming alive. And by putting the colour pencil over the acrylic paint, it just helps add texture and add depth to the colour. It might seem a little bit odd using the same colours, so doing greens over greens, but you can sort of see how just putting that little bit of extra over the top has just made those colours come alive a little bit. So I'm also using my Stabilo Oil pencil just to add in some extra lines and some craziness to his eyes, and I'm using some grey pencil on the whites of the eyes just to add in a highlight too, which is a fantastic tip that was taught to me by Tracy Scott. So if you ever got a chance to do any of her classes, she is amazing. She makes doing stuff like this really, really easy. So she is a huge inspiration for doing this as well. So I'm going in now with that red again, just to pick up the colours that I put in below and to add in that extra shading. So the reason this kind of works in this page is because the red and green are opposite colours on the colour wheel, so they sort of really stand out from each other, and it helps add to the sort of craziness of the page, or the weirdness of the page, which is kind of what it's supposed to capture in the first place. I'm using a really light sort of chartreuse green colour to add as my contrast, and a little bit of yellow as well into the page, and then just going around with my Stabilo Oil pencil just to darken up the edges and make it pop out a little bit from the background. Now, one of the things that a lot of Sarah's artwork has is weird and wonderful teeth. I've never painted teeth on an image before, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit to do, but it actually ended up being a lot easier than I imagined, and I actually really liked the effect. So I just went in and left a bit of a gap in the mouth. You can see it's not particularly even. And now I'm just going in with my Stabilo Oil pencil and just dividing it up. But then I'm going in with a grey pencil and just rounding off the bottoms of each of the tooth on both sides. So it sort of gives you that rounded tooth effect. So again, it's a bit kooky and a bit weird, but it actually, I think, added to the weirdness of the page. With a dry brush, I'm just going back in with the white paint and just adding a few extra highlights onto the page. When I'm finished doing that, I want to put some more texture into the background as well. So I'm going back in with my colour pencils. And again, this isn't something I would normally do. And while I was doing it, I was thinking, oh, this is a little bit pointless, but when you look at the finished piece, you actually see the texture of the pencil on it. So if you haven't had a go at doing it, I encourage you to do it on at least one page and see if you like the effect. So I'm just going in with the same colours I used in the background and sort of blending them in together, going back in and just fiddling around with some different colours to make sure I'm happy with them. The final thing that this page needed or wanted is in Sarah's piece, she used the body of the weird and wonderful creature to write a quote about being weird. So I just used a white Stabilo pencil to draw out some rough lines like I usually do when I'm doing my quote making, and using the same technique again that I usually do, which is writing in block capitals and extending them the width of the lines that I've made. But what I started to do halfway through, and I actually quite liked it, was go from sort of block letters to lowercase letters and have a bit of a mix. So the whole quote, which you can't see the rest of it off screen, is be weird, your weirdness is your superpower. And I really love that because it just appeals to me that, you know, everyone has their own individual quirk, and that's what makes you amazing, and that's what makes you a bit of a superpower, or that's what your superpower is. And it's something that I'd like my girls to really cotton on to, that, you know, it doesn't matter if they like something that's a bit different, but that's what makes them interesting and unique and important. I'm just going back in with my Posca paint pen to put in some of the white lines again. I liked having the lines there just to finish it off, and I think I was really pleased with how it turned out in the end. So this is a close-up of the page. Again, all thanks to Sarah for the inspiration. I really enjoyed doing this, and I hope you have a go at drawing your inner weird as well. It's lots of fun to do. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye for now.